to Career Lab Wednesday. I am your host, George Miller. I'm here almost every Wednesday to help you develop in your career. And the approach that I use is to apply emotional intelligence to develop relationships in your career. Now, I can break this down all the way into resume writing, into interviewing, into purpose in your career, satisfaction, and relationships with team members, etc. So what I like to do is I invite any questions career related. You can ask anything that is on your heart. And a way that you can do that is you can either jump in directly here on Zoom and come off mute if you want and ask a question, but do know that it is being live streamed. So if you want to remain anonymous, then type your question into the chat. And if you're viewing on LinkedIn or on YouTube, type your questions into the comment section, and I will do my best to answer your questions that way. So I'll reiterate that in a little bit for anybody who's joining in. But again, you can ask any questions career related. You don't have to try to stay on this topic. Anything career related is fair game, and I will probably tie it back to emotional intelligence because that's my expertise. So what we're looking at today is I like to take topics that I think are kind of buzz topics in the career space, and people talk about the importance of transparency, and I agree. And I like to go a little deeper. I like to break it down and talk through how to make that work in an organization. I've had a lot of experience with implementing new standards of communication and wanting to encourage more open communication, and then seeing that it is rough. There's a rough start to it. That it's one thing to say it, but to have a space where there's increasing transparency. See, I think full transparency is a little much. I don't know that I'm ever going to say full transparency, that I want full transparency, but maybe increasing transparency will actually help more transparency happen in the workplace. So there's a trust deficit. And so just simply saying, be more transparent, it's not going to work without understanding what's going on inside of us, what's going on as individuals and in groups. So when we're setting a new standard in an organization or in a team, there's already a set culture. And changing that is going to take intention, persistence, and reminders. One of my mentors said that it took him a long time to learn that he would ask for something new from his team and then they wouldn't do it. And he took it as a personal offense to him. Like they were, trying to make his life harder. And it took him years to realize, no, everybody has patterns already established, and to change course is going to take reminders. But how do I remind in a way that is not me kowtowing or making inappropriate allowances? So if I'm going to change the game, I need to understand that I'm going to have to be reminding, but I still want to do it with holding an expectation and say, I'll remind a few times, but this is not a pattern that I want to establish. It really is ultimately your responsibility. But anyway, so that's still a little higher level. I want to break this down. So if you're on a team and you're wanting to facilitate more open communication, there is ways that rebuilding confidence might be a helpful approach. And one of the things to know is that breaches in relationship and in communication are inevitable. Um, I just had an example of this in a meeting where somebody was behind schedule, and they brought it up in a. Actually, they didn't bring it up in a meeting. They brought it up in an email to me and another advisor, and I responded in the email, basically pointing out that the responsibility was still in their court. That they kind of came to me wanting me to fix the problem for them, and I said, that's not my job. It's your job to handle this. Here's a couple suggestions on how you might do it. And so then in the meeting, I brought it up again, and I said, what's your reaction to my response to you? And they didn't really take responsibility. So I pointed it out to them, and I said, this is a responsibility of yours in the job, and I understand that you're behind on it. And so now I want to know how you're going to catch up, and the impact. How are you going to positively impact the team and stay in relationship with that? And so, I put it back on them, and that in that communication, there was a lot of little breaches in the relationship. And so I addressed the breach that had happened with the team, and I addressed it with the between in our relationship personally, and it was it was uncomfortable. It was a tense moment in the meeting, and what it did was, instead of me trying to gloss over it and saying thank you so much for being open about being behind on something, here's what I want you to do, and here's the ways that you can handle it, I addressed the breach in the relationship. I talked about where the breakdown of trust had happened, and then I spoke slowly and with openness, and allowed them to take steps to repair the breach and say, okay, well, here's what I'm going to do to get back in integrity, to get back into relationship with this group. And so that's an example of how to implement this kind of thing. And to remember that it's probably going to be uncomfortable. I felt afraid doing that. It was a vulnerable thing for me to do as the leader, to address somebody in an open meeting that way. But it was also really important because it set the standard for the team. It was a learning opportunity. And so I framed it that way as well. I said, thank you for, working this through. This is something really important for everybody. And I even acknowledged them, and I said, and by the way, you're taking this feedback faster than I usually take this kind of feedback. So I even made it that personal and saying, I get it. This is uncomfortable. It's fine. No big deal. And this is what we need to do to be transparent in an effective way. I think often people think of transparency as sharing openly and then coddling, and that's not what I'm talking about. All right, so that's the story. I'm working my way to dig in deeper on this, on what's happening inside each of us when we have a breach. And actually, maybe before I dig in deeper, I'm going to share a video that has to do with this. So let's get this up. So this is each one of us as children. The way that we develop is by going through. Oh, that's right. I have to open it up first on here before I can share it. Great. Bear with me. I'm still get my excuse for the last 3 months have been, I'm still getting used to this computer. So, all right. So this is how all of us develop. We all develop with a breach in a relationship and then repairing in the relationship. So we're going to just watch this.
The still face experiment, what the mother did was she sits down and she's playing with her baby who's about a year of age.
And I want you to understand that this kind of interaction is happening all the time between me and my wife, between me and coworkers, between me and staff. And so this is happening in your relationships constantly. And this is how we develop. We develop not alone, but we develop with other people and through the eyes of our caretakers. So this gets laid down, and there's a really important thing that's going to happen here.
Girl. Oh.
And she gives a greeting to the baby gives a greeting back to her.
Yeah.
This baby starts pointing at different places in the world, and the mother's trying to engage her and play with her. They're working to coordinate their emotions and their intentions, what they want to do in the world. And that's really what the baby is used to. And then
Okay, so that's what's going on in meetings, where we are working to coordinate our emotions and our thoughts and to play together towards an outcome. I use the word play instead of work there, because I'm training myself to see work more as play. So working together, playing together towards an outcome. We are sharing our thoughts and emotions. So, but there's going to be breakdowns. There's going to be times where there's conflict and a lack of communication. That's always going to happen. And it actually happens through everybody's life, all the way back to childhood. And it's actually part of development. So there's nothing wrong with the breach that you're about to watch.
Mother to not respond to the baby. The baby very quickly picks up on this, and then she uses all of her abilities to try and get the mother back. She smiles at the mother. She points because she's used to the mother looking where she points.
You be thinking about that in meetings where, somebody's trying to have an interaction and it's not happening. It's like there's the disconnect is going on.
The baby puts both hands up in front of her and says, "What's happening here?" She makes that screechy sound at the mother, like, "Come on, why aren't we doing this?" Even in this 2 minutes, when they don't get the normal reaction, they react with negative emotions.
Okay, I got to stop it there, because even though I really respect Dr. Edtronic, he says negative emotions, and I do not believe there's such a thing as negative emotions. There's simply emotions, fear, hurt, anger, sadness, joy. Fear and hurt and anger and sadness, they all have a purpose. There is a reason why we feel what we feel. They are not negative. Now, I can do negative things with them. I can do harmful things with them, but the emotions themselves are not negative.
Turn away. They feel the stress of it. They actually may lose control of their posture because of the stress that they're experiencing.
Okay. I'm here. And what are you doing? Oh, yes. Oh, what a big girl.
Okay, so that right there, you saw the repair. You saw how the mom and her baby repaired the breach in that communication, the breach in their relationship. And that kind of repair can happen many, many, many times throughout the day. Or it cannot happen. Or there can be a conflict with no repair. And learning how to repair is quite a skill. In fact, with a lot of people that I work with, it takes to have, especially around really big breaches and, big pain points in life. I mean, it can take years, in an office, in a corporate space during a work meeting. It doesn't need to take that long. You can, like the story I was sharing. Um, there's a little. I'd say that there's still a little bit of a repair happening between me and the person I was talking about, and me and some of the people in the group that were uncomfortable with the direct encounter. But it can happen a lot faster than years and years and years. I'm just saying there's a whole range. If you think about a betrayal in a marriage, that's going to be years. You think about relationships with family members where there's years of a certain kind of pattern or habit in the relationship. Yeah, that's going to take years to heal that kind of a breach. But there's lots of micro breaches in the moments that lead to the bigger healing. Okay, so I wanted to dig in deep and show you that video to understand that breaches and repairs happen. There's a rupture in the relationship, and then there's a healing, a fixing. It's the same thing when you go to the gym. It's the same thing with developing muscles. You literally rupture little parts of the muscles, you break things, and then they heal together stronger. They heal together differently, building the muscle mass. It's the same thing with our feelings and the same thing with our communications in relationships. So it's like, I'm going to go through a rupture in a relationship with somebody on my team. That's going to happen. And I can now hold that as totally fine. It's an opportunity for the reattachment to create a more secure bond, to create more trust. So change, mistakes, miscommunication, that's going to happen. That's going to create micro breaches in the trust on teams. And if I'm pretending like that's not going to happen, then I'm going to be way less effective. So I need to acknowledge where it's happening. I need to be assuming that it's happening. I need to be preparing for war so that I can enjoy peace. If I am pretending like I'm in peace, then I'm going to lose the war. So I want to reference Fasha, Siegel, and Solomon, their book, The Healing Power of Emotion. Well, that sucks. My internet snapped off for a moment, but I am back and I probably need to go. Oh, no. All right. It's still live streaming. All right. Back online. Great. Thank you, Jane. Um, damn it. I was on a roll. What was I saying? What was I saying? Getting back to my flow. So, okay, well, no, I'll just do this right here. I'll tie this into, so there I am talking about a subject, and I'm in touch with myself, and I'm imagining my audience. I'm imagining the people who are here on Zoom, and I'm imagining people on LinkedIn and on YouTube, and I'm talking to you, and I'm there, and then whoop, internet goes out, breach, and I feel hurt, I feel afraid, I feel angry. And so then I'm like, damn it. And I'm mad about it. I'm mostly scared. It's like, oh no, and I lost somebody on Zoom. Oh no, that's too bad. And I feel hurt about it. I feel sad about it because I lost something. So right there now, I am repairing the breach. And I'm not just doing it, but I'm addressing it directly. I'm addressing, oh, thank you, Jane. You're awesome. That's right. I was talking about a book. And so I'm addressing the breach and I'm acknowledging it. And the really critical thing in it is that I'm in touch with my feelings around it. And I'm communicating that again. So you might not communicate that. You might not say, I feel afraid at work, but you might say, I have some concerns. You might not say, I'm angry that the internet kicked out. Or you might. I don't think that's going to upset anybody too much, but or say like, oh, that was frustrating, you know? And so by doing that now, I'm speaking not just to the logistical side of things, but I'm going in with more depth. We are emotional creatures. We respond emotionally. That's why marketing works. That's why everybody who makes, or not everybody, but a lot of people who make a lot of money and then want to control things, they get podcasts going and they're like, I need to start marketing. I need to start influencing. I need to start speaking to people's emotions. I could go on a whole thing around that, how the Republican Party in the United States has done a much better job of that than the Democratic Party. So this is really important stuff, is to be aware of the emotions and to address that to some degree. When repairing a breach, it's going to help. So if you want to have transparency in the workplace, it means transparency on your emotions as well. So I was sharing about that so that the healing power of emotion, yes, right to this point, is that, the internet kicked off, I'm gone, I feel afraid, hurt, and angry, and I share that. And I let myself feel that. Just like the little baby that we watched earlier. She didn't try to suppress the feelings. She let the feelings happen. And that's a communication in and of itself. And that opens up doors. And you don't even have to be speaking the same language. She's not speaking English. She wasn't like, Mom, I feel afraid that you're not responding to what I'm saying. That would be logical. And there's nothing wrong with the logic. But what's so powerful are the emotions underneath the words and the thoughts and the expressions. And so there is healing power in emotion, to the point of Fascia, Siegel, and Solomon. So emotional connection and repair is what actually reorganizes the nervous system towards resilience and safety. If I am repairing without the emotions, it's not going to be as powerful. It's not going to rewire as deeply. So, there's a lot of ways that a helpful approach can be to not try to avoid ruptures or mistakes or miscommunications so much, but is to focus on the repair. Focus on sharing and bringing transparency to that. So transparency without emotional expression, it still feels unsafe. And it's like, I'm having to figure out the right thing to say. And I think about that with, on the kind of PC space. I'm going to address, I just made a comment about Republicans and Democrats. And the Democratic Party, on the more liberal side of things, there's been so much like just talking about, what's proper, what's correct, what's, and that kind of communication without the emotion underneath it does not create more resiliency and safety. In fact, it can even be superior and causing harm. And so if there's avoidance of feelings, if I'm avoiding my own hurt and anxiety in communications, I'm not going to be as effective, and people will resent me more. Even if my words are making sense, if I don't have the emotional presence, the words are not going to land for people. It's like we need that. It's like radar. Like it's happening before our bodies communicate so much more than just words. So in the case of what I was sharing earlier about where I brought up the breach in integrity in our team and named that publicly, and I said, I'm uncomfortable talking about this way, but it's also really important for us to be successful. So I shared that. I said I'm uncomfortable, and I was feeling uncomfortable, and that had people understand me. That invited the repair. It invited a deeper transparency. So if I was trying to talk on top of my discomfort and my own anxiety and trying to pretend like I wasn't, I would have been inauthentic in the moment, and it would not have worked as well. And oh man, there's a lot of times where I do that. So I want to be clear. When you're picturing yourself in your relationships, assume that you're not being as authentic as you could be. Assume you're not being as vulnerable about how you're anxious as you could be. Because I'm sharing an example of where I had a win, but there's many times in my life that I don't. And sometimes the more effective thing for me to do is even to say, you know what, I understand what you're saying right now. The feedback you're giving me is probably spot on, but like I'm kind of triggered right now, and I'm going to work on integrating what you're telling me. It's not going to happen in this moment. Like that's the honest, authentic thing to do, is to just acknowledge what's so, and not try to jump over myself and get to some finalized solution when I'm not really there. I think another thing to underline is that transparency is not trust. So trust can happen through attunement. And it's not just, it cannot be formulaic. No one formula is going to build trust. It takes conscious effort. It takes two individuals or a group making the choice to trust. So, me saying, hey, let's have more transparency on our team. It's a nice thing to be aiming for, but to understand that the trust that will get developed as we are becoming more transparent is going to take a lot of little choices, a lot of moment to moment decisions. So I can acknowledge discomfort. I can say, this is going to be a challenge. And when that happens, I think about that movie, Braveheart, which I've learned not millennials and older millennials know that movie, but not all younger ones and Zoomers don't know that one. But, here's a warrior, and he talks to his soldiers, and he says, I need you. And yeah, we're probably going to lose, but we're going to go out fighting and really living fully in this moment. And so that is a powerful way for a leader to be, to say, yeah, the change is happening in the marketplace, the change is happening. This is incredibly challenging. I don't know how we're going to do it. I believe that we can, but I need all of you. I need your intention. And that's incredibly empowering. People like that. There's research on this as well. I'm not remembering the title of the book, but most people, it's 80 to 90% of people like to have high standards from a team and have that kind of a challenge and say, if we're going to make this, if we're going to be successful, we're going to have to give it our all. And that is a magnificent way that a leader can be in communicating to their team. Emotional honesty. The wonderful clip on this one would be Evan, Any Given Sunday, if you've watched that movie, where Al Pacino says to the team, I can't do it for you, I'm too old. But if we're going to win, we're going to heal as a team, and we're going to win as a team. And just his vulnerability in that was quite empowering to the team. Okay. Oh, great. Thank you. I'm getting some questions here. So fantastic. Thank you for typing in the question. And for everybody listening in on YouTube and on LinkedIn, you are welcome to type your questions into the comment section, and I will do my best to address the questions. And if I'm going in one direction and you want me to go in another, just let me know. Just type in how I'm doing with tracking with your question. So 2 questions on my mind with recent workplace situations. I may have addressed these, but would like to hear some more. So interested in repair as a leader facilitating repair between others who may not see a desire or a need for repair and maybe do not want it based on repeated ruptures. Thinking about the workplace, is it between the 2 individuals and you put the responsibility back on them? Or do you make it an expectation as the leader versus a choice? That's a fantastic question. Great question. The quick answer is it is an expectation as the leader. And to understand that it's probably going to take time, especially if they don't want to repair. But I don't have many examples. I don't know if I have any examples where if there's a rupture in a relationship at the workplace, that there's going to be consequences for that in the long run. And if it's not addressed, it will lead to more trouble later. And it doesn't mean that as a leader, I have to watch my own anxiety and me trying to force a repair, because that doesn't work. But to also understand that if the repair doesn't happen, problems will continue to arise from that relationship. And it may even be the correct thing to do if let's say it's 2 people who do great work, but they're not going to be aligned, would be to have them work in different places, have them meet with different supervisors, that kind of thing, but to be very open about it. So what I would do, I'm going to just throw this out again. I don't know your specific scenario, but how I would handle this is say something like, okay, there's been disagreements about certain things, and the expectation that I have is that relationships get repaired, and that people on my team work things out. And I understand that this might not happen overnight. So there's a couple of choices that things we can do here. I want you both. You do great work. And ideally, I'd want you to be aligned and to be able to work through your conflicts for the greater good of our mission. And I'm fine with there being some conflict, but what I'm not okay with is the way that this gets in the way of us achieving our goals. And so if this is going to continue getting in the way, if there's going to continue to be drama around this, I see a couple paths forward. One is that, I'll just have to not have the two of you interact. And I see some, serious problems with that. That is going, there's going to be ways that plays out on our team that are not ideal. And so I ultimately don't want that. But if that's what we need to do right now, if we need to make that allowance as a team, and see what happens with that for a while, okay, I'm willing to do that. While I still want to communicate the expectation that everybody is able to work through their differences in the service of our greater mission. And so I would put out some pathways and then get their buy-in, or have them make the choice about it. Say, we're going to try it this way for a bit, and then let's check back in and see what you've learned. And if you can see a way of resolving conflict together, that's an approach that I would take. I'm going to see, you've got a second question here, so I want to make sure to get into that, and please give me feedback on my first response there. I'll probably dig in a little deeper on that in a moment, but also, what about trust in disciplinary processes? Where do you want to be transparent with the rest of the group about how a breach that impacted others was handled with a specific individual who might receive specific discipline? Yet you have to be somewhat silent on personal issues generally. Yeah. These are great questions, and it's really, really important. All of the stuff, what you're teeing up here for me, people's feelings are already hurt, and how you handle that is going to have quite an impact in the organization. So one thing about disciplinary practices, I want to break that word down a little bit. So the word discipline comes from disciple, which is another way of it thinking of it would be like mentorship. So if I'm studying the ways of a teacher, like it's a discipline. And so even just a conversation around disciplinary action and saying, look, the point of this is to learn a skill. And so, in the case with what I was sharing about before, it was somebody late on their project and hadn't been communicating about it. What I said was, this is an issue, and it doesn't work for you to not complete the work. We obviously need it to move forward, but there's also to acknowledge that other people have picked up your slack. And so for you to get back in, it would actually be to, one, acknowledge it, to thank other people on the team for picking up the slack. And it might look like you picking up some slack in some other places or going above and beyond, and as a way of saying thank you to everybody else on the team. So, you're going to be doing some extra work. You're going to be staying a little later. That's the concept. It's a logical consequence. It's not punishment, but you're applying something now to learn a skill and learn how to get back into integrity, get back into relationship, get back into rapport with your team. And so here's the disciplinary action. And doing that, I most of the time, I want to do it with the team. If it's a team I'm running, it's going to be an open educational moment. And so what I would do is use it as an educational time for the team. Maybe, I don't know about calling a whole meeting, but doing it at the next meeting and naming, like, hey, this is not punishment. The point here isn't to shame or blame anybody, but this is something that is happening on this team. And so I wanted to take the opportunity to look at our agreements, to look at our mission, look at our company mission, and look at our operating procedures. Look at what our agreements are about how we function, and to have a conversation about it. Because we have not been operating to our agreements. And even take responsibility as the leader and say, and by the way, it's quite possible that I did not communicate these as clearly as I could have. And that's on me. And so we're taking this opportunity now to look at what our agreements are, to get really clear about that. And, we want to have an open discussion about the ways that people have not been getting things done and have not been communicating that, have not been asking for the help they need, that kind of thing. So we're going to have an open conversation about it. And then I would ask the team, ask people on my team to refer to the agreements that we have, to refer to the procedures. And so if somebody is late on something and didn't communicate that, to say, so why is it that we have this agreement that there's going to be open communication about something like this? And then somebody will share about that. Say, yeah, if somebody doesn't get their is going to be behind on the deadline, then that impacts me because I'm not going to have the information that I need to be as accurate as I need to be. And so that might be fine, but I need to at least know it. If I'm passing this off to the sales team, they need to know this. They need to know that, if this comes up in the meeting, then you can, be ahead of it and anticipate it and say, yep, our team is on that. And we're going to have more answers on that in the next week. That kind of thing, so that you can really be aligned. See, that builds the trust with your clients, with your customers, with whatever. So you use this as a teaching moment. So I hope that's helpful. Let me know if I'm on track. So to make sure that you're reframing the disciplinary process as a learning and growing opportunity. So much of us, we're all freaked out about authority and our sense of self and identity and all of that. And I'm always afraid someone's trying to put me in a box and brainwash me and punish me and beat me into submission. I'm that way, and at least 50% of the people, probably more like 70% of the people, probably more like 90% of people I interact with have some kind of limiting belief about leadership that way. That it's like they just want me to get in line, and they don't care if I'm actually learning and growing from it. So that kind of thing is just helpful to be aware of, that like that's going on in our unconscious mind on some level. And so addressing things directly, saying again and again, this is about learning and growing. I want everybody on my team to learn and grow, and we're going to do that by rising to the occasion, to facing challenges directly, to being open about where I'm making mistakes and where communication breakdowns are happening. We're going to be transparent about that, and it's going to be uncomfortable, but we're learning and growing. And when somebody needs more attention and support on something, if someone's been consistently late or lacking in communications, where we're going to highlight that. And we're going to do it so that they can learn the skill of communicating more openly. And they're going to understand that as a team, we have their back, that the weakest link in the chain, that is actually everybody's issue on the team. And so we're going to go about this like the Navy SEALs. We're going to be clear about what our shortcomings are. Oh God, I didn't even plan on going there, but that's a great one. You want to take this to the extreme. I don't remember the book right now, but in Navy SEALs training, the people who make it are not the strongest ones, not the smartest ones, not the people who have had so much success already in their life. It's often the shorter, skinnier, scrawnier, somebody with ADHD, like whatever. It's usually this kind of ragtag team that has learned how to ask for help. It's usually the people that you wouldn't expect who actually make it through. And so, sharing stuff like that with your team, like, look, we're all imperfect. That's not the point. The point is that we're learning and growing, and we can't really learn and grow if we're not open and transparent about where our shortcomings are. So that can be some great context to set for your team. And man, I'm sorry. Thank you for that question. You took me somewhere I wasn't expecting to go. Oh, I love that. So thank you. And I'm glad to see that that it's helpful to you. I would love to hear how you apply this. Feel free, by the way. Oh man, I've been having a blast today. I got to start wrapping up. Feel free to set up a one-to-one with me. I love working with people and helping you get clarity about your next steps. And if you've got a bigger project going on in your career, we can look at what a coaching mentor relationship would look like. So set up a one-to-one time with me. I'm happy to take 15 to 20 minutes and just get to know you a little bit and see what we can do. And again, if it turns into something more, I love working with people. I love my job. This is why I do what I do. If there's a longer game that you're working on, coaching and mentorship are huge, so important to get real-time feedback about communication skills. I have many mentors and many coaches. I'm actively coaching all the time, and I'm in coaching supervision because I know it works. I know when I'm in coaching sessions, I have to walk the talk. I have to be applying what I'm training people on to myself all the time. That's just the way of life for me. So I encourage you to really look at coaching. I love that Tony Robbins has been saying, get a coach, get any coach. It just works. Do it. I've had many people actually coach with me because they heard Tony Robbins say that and they wanted a more personalized experience. So set up a time with me. And another thing you can do is take a personality assessment, the CARE personality assessment. It's a helpful tool that gives you a perspective of who you are, and more importantly in the process, understanding other personality types, being able to identify them so that you can shift your language. And shifting requires discomfort, requires being in touch with your core feelings: fear, hurt, anger, sadness, and joy. I feel afraid by doing something a little different. I feel kind of hurt and angry that I'm talking to somebody and it doesn't seem like they're getting me. And I have to be willing to pay the price, to be with the feelings, to be uncomfortable so that I can shift and communicate outside of my comfort zone so that somebody can hear me better. So that's a real skill. I am continuing to develop. That will be to the day I'm dead, I'm sure. So a couple of things you can check out: 15 minutes with me, or check out the link Connect and Thrive that will help you understand other people and yourself more. So I got to get rolling, everybody, but thank you. Thank you so much for joining in. Thank you for your questions. Oh, and I got to say, I'm not going to be here next week. This is one of the few weeks I'm not in. I will be traveling. So it's going to be December before I'm back. So feel free to set up a time with me and get some questions for yourself for next time. Feel free to type those into the comment section on LinkedIn or YouTube at any point, and I will do my best to answer. And I will see you in a couple weeks. Blessings, everybody. Remember that there are going to be ruptures in communication. There are going to be mistakes made. Miscommunication is going to happen. And it's actually part of the learning and growing process. So instead of pretending like that's not happening, anticipate it, address it directly, and address it with care and grace and goodwill. And have a wonderful holiday time. Blessings, everyone.